All right, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. If everybody would please rise and join me in a moment of silent reflection, followed by an invocation by Pastor Fullerton with the Glendale Baptist Church, and the Pledge of Allegiance by Vice Chair Commissioner Flesher.
Father, as we come to you today, we first of all want to thank you for the first responders and members of the armed forces that we have given this moment of silence to. Without them, we would sorely be in need, and we pray that you would guide and watch over them and protect them and their families. And Lord, today as we come before you at this time of the year, the celebration of your son's birth, we ask that you just might be with the group that has gathered here. We pray for these commissioners, that you would lift them up, that you would give them wisdom, that you would guide their decisions today, Lord, that they might be decisions that you would have them to make. We pray for their health, that you might give them good health during the holidays and for this next year, that you would protect their families. And we thank you, Father, for this county in which we live and also this country. Bless us now, and bless all those who are here. And I pray that no matter what they go through between now and Christmas, that they'll take time to remember that precious gift that you gave to us. Be with us now, for we'd ask us in the name of that gift, Christ Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the greatest nation on earth, the United States of America, land of the free, because of the brave. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, gentlemen, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? 10B, B1.
10B1, I believe we had a note that the requested speaker will not be in attendance.
So we'll pull 10B1, or delete 10B1. Any other changes?
Madam Chair, move as amended.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is proclamations and presentations. And our first proclamation is going to be designating the month of December 2019 as Christmas at Terra Month. And if y'all would like to come on up to the podium, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Oops. All right, welcome. It's my pleasure to read a proclamation designating the month of December 2019 as Christmas at Terra Month. Whereas Bernard F. Grawl Jr. and Margaret Grawl have dedicated the past 30 years of their lives to the citizens of Indian River County through their annual Christmas display. And whereas members of the Grawl family, now extended to the Barwick, Bilecki, Brown, Cervini, Worley, and Zork families, have participated in the annual community stewardship and decorating traditions of Christmas at Terra. And whereas the staff of Grawl Law Group and Terra Plantation have contributed their time and talent to further the vision of Mr. and Mrs. Grawl and the extended Grawl family. And whereas the citizens of Indian River County and beyond have experienced the spirit of the season brought forth through Christmas at Terra and fashioned traditions of their own. Whereas the lights of Christmas at Terra dazzle the night from the first Sunday following Thanksgiving until New Year's Eve each year. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the month of December 2019 be recognized as Christmas at Terra Month, and furthermore expresses our sincere appreciation for the gift the Grawl family and Grawl Law Group have given to our community over the past 3 decades. Adopted this 17th day of December 2019 and signed by the Chair of the Board of County Commission. And I'd just like to thank you guys for what you do every year. My family looks forward to it every year. We haven't made it there yet, but it's always the weekend before Christmas that we go, so we'll be seeing you this weekend. And I know how much hard work it has to take to put something like that on. I have a hard time doing my own decorations at my house, and that just is like one string of lights, so I can't even imagine keeping up with what you guys do. But we really do appreciate it. The community looks forward to it every year, and we thank you for the hard work you put into it. Thank you. If you'd like, yeah, certainly, Commissioner Fletcher.
And I just want to add, Counselor, Representative, there's a lot of attorneys in the family, and a lot of military service in the family, but dedicated to our holiday and bringing joy to our community is just a fantastic gift that you have given to all of us. And so many appreciate it, so much so that there's bus loops, and there's traffic jams, and there's law enforcement escorts and traffic direction, because it's such a phenomenal gift. And I just want to know one thing, Counselor, and when I was a deputy, that was my old zone, and I used to see you out there toiling with the wires. You want to share when you actually start this process?
It's usually January 1st.
January 1st. It is absolutely a phenomenal gift, and I know that many citizens in Indian River County look forward to it each and every year. And we also have our northern visitors and southern visitors that come to this county just to see your place of joy. So thank you for all you've done for us.
Thank you.
You got to run the gauntlet.
Good morning, y'all. Thank you for
You
coming.
were so precious. That was so cute. Hey, March. Counselor.
Scrunchy here. They must have saw the X on the floor.
Oh, he's no stranger to that.
Y'all ready? On three. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grover.
Bob, you're scaring the kids.
It happens.
They don't understand.
All right. Our next proclamation is a presentation of proclamation honoring Lenora Williams on her 100th birthday, presented by Commissioner Fletcher.
Good morning. And I'll tell you what, folks, it's an extreme honor to present every proclamation, but how many opportunities do we get to deliver a 100 happy birthday proclamation? Today's the day, and I want to thank you for living such a beautiful life and sharing in this community over the years. I'd like to present this proclamation honoring Lenora Williams on her 100th birthday. Whereas Lenora Williams will celebrate her 100th birthday on December 22nd. And whereas Lenora was born in Monticello, Florida in 1919, I said that. And after World War II, moved to Indian River County, where she has resided for over 70 years. And whereas Lenora took Charlie as her husband and was blessed with 2 children and 8 grandchildren, whereas Lenora was office manager of New Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church for 50 years, a devoted member of the church's choir and missionary society, and a lifetime member of the Heroines of Jericho. And whereas Lenora served as past president of the Gifford High School Parent-Teacher Association, where she strove to maximize the potential of every adolescent child. And whereas Lenora and her outgoing personality and welcoming nature has enthusiastically contributed to and inspired the Progressive Civic League of Gifford, an active community organization working to manifest improvements in the best interest of all Gifford residents. And whereas Lenora's life spanned the century when the United States became the world's leading nation, contributing her story among those who sacrificed so much in hope that the world would be a better place. Now therefore be proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the board congratulates Lenora Williams on reaching her 100th birthday and extends its sincere best wishes for the many more happy and productive years. Duly adopted this 17th day of December 2019. Signed by all 5 county commissioners. Good morning, Lenora. Happy birthday. And you know we're going to sing happy birthday to you. And I'm going to ask every member of the audience to participate. But do we have some words of wisdom on how we're all here with you on your 100th birthday?
You want to say anything? I just want to thank the Lord and thank you all for honoring me. It's such a blessing. One thing, I can't do great things, but all of you all are in my prayers. I want to say Vero Beach and Gifford, the best place in the world to be.
Say thank you.
And I just thank you all. I'm not a talker, but I thank you all from the bottom of my heart.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate you, and over the years, you've done a lot of talking, and you've talked with members of the community, and you've talked with groups to ensure that things went right. And we want to say thank you, because without you, we wouldn't be us.
Thank you.
So thank you. I'm going to ask everybody to sing happy birthday to Lenora. Can we do that? Yeah. All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lenora. Happy birthday to you. Lenora, I'll tell you what. We know if you don't want to, we can come down to you if you want. You want to do that? Oh, okay. No, don't let me interfere.
Do a few laps.
That's how you get to be 100.
Okay.
You gotta keep moving.
Okay.
You're going to go down.
Into a proclamation, right?
Hey, we got something to look forward to when we turn 100. We can come back.
Thank you for joining. Congratulations. I don't want to hear your
Vero Beach, best place in the world.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Where's the cake?
Thank you for everything.
Saturday.
That'll be a big cake.
We didn't want to be
Lots
premature.
of candles.
Happy birthday and Merry
Good morning. Thanks for coming today. Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'll catch you in a minute.
That's great.
Lord, I know you've been so good. Lord, I know you've been so good. You watched over me all night long. Lord, I know you've been so good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Turn around.
You gave us another gift.
Oop, 1 second.
What are you doing, Scott?
On three. 1, 2, 3. We'll do one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you all.
Happy birthday again.
And Merry Christmas. Oh, there you go. I was like, where'd he go?
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
That's what I was thinking, but I didn't know.
That is two fun ways to start the meeting.
If you hit the
Christmas,
gavel, we can end it on a high note.
Christmas and a 100th birthday, things to aspire to. All right, the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the September 10th and September 17th meeting.
Move approval.
I have a motion by Commissioner Zork and a second by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is informational items. I would like to note that there is a proclamation honoring Daniel J. Elward on his retirement from Indian River County Board of County Commissioners, Department of General Services, Recreation Division, with 30 years of service. That is amazing. We just want to thank you for your service and wish you well in your retirement. Does anybody else want to note anything on the informational items?
Great lifeguard.
Most definitely. All right, if not, then we will move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody need to pull anything from consent? Anybody from the public wishing to pull anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none,
Madam Chair, move approval.
Second?
I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a public hearing on the consideration to adopt an ordinance amending County Code Chapter 308, Indian River County Local Housing Assistance Program. Correct? Yes, okay. Welcome, gentlemen.
Sorry, Madam Chair, just want to make sure they were caught up.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Bill Shute, Chief of Long Range Planning for Indian River County. And the item before you today is a proposed amendment to the county's Chapter 308 Local Housing Assistance Program. And the primary amendment focuses on Affordable Housing Advisory Committee membership. Just real briefly, for the benefit of the public, I know we've talked about this recently in the past, but here's a real quick brief history. In 1993, the county adopted a local housing assistance plan, and it's required for our state housing initiative partnership funding and our local housing programs. It was all codified, all the rules and requirements in Chapter 308 of the county code. And in there, towards the beginning, you have 4 main points. It establishes the creation of a local housing assistance trust fund, establishment of a local housing assistance program, the designation of responsibility of implementation and administration, and it has the creation of the Indian River County Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. That is the active committee that advises the board and comes up with recommendations. In 2014, Chapter 308 was updated to address changes in the SHIP program, including statute and code references. More recently, on October 22nd, 2019, before this board, the board reviewed the Florida statute AHAC membership requirements, as well as some recent AHAC attendance issues with the current AHAC. And state statute requires a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 11 members, with at least 6 of those members from any 11 categories specifically listed in state statute. Chapter 308 of the county's code actually has a 16-member requirement. It includes all 11 state categories, plus 5 municipal representatives and 1 non-voting BCC liaison. At the October 22nd meeting, the BCC directed staff to prepare amendments to Chapter 308 to make the AHAC membership requirements consistent with Florida statute, to prepare an updated AHAC membership resolution, and advertise for public hearing. And that's where we're at today. This slide shows the 11-member option that's listed in state statute. The state statute says you need at least 6 from this slide here, these 11 members. And as presented October 22nd, the first 5 were agreed to by this board based on membership attendance at AHAC meetings this year. The 6th member was added since the October 22nd meeting. It's a for-profit provider of affordable housing based on increased attendance of that member. Remaining committee members, we have the City of Fellsmere, City of Sebastian, City of Vero Beach, Town of Indian River Shores, and Town of Orchid as representatives on the committee. And that's 7 through 11. And plus we have the BCC liaison, which is a non-voting member. So with the recommendation, staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners approve the proposed amendment to County Code Chapter 308 by adopting the proposed ordinance and adopt the proposed AHAC resolution and approve the final list of current AHAC member categories as outlined in the staff report and listed in this PowerPoint, and authorize the current members in those categories to continue to serve based on their current approved terms, and authorize staff to issue thank you letters to the members that will no longer be on AHAC due to the size restructuring from the state statute. With that, I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions of staff at this time?
Madam Chair, I just have a couple.
Sure.
Bill, are all 5 of the municipalities, how's their attendance at the meetings?
Actually, I have a cheat sheet here, but it's very good.
Okay.
Yeah, missed very, very few.
All right, that's fine. Very good.
Any other questions of staff? All right, well, since this is a public hearing, I will go ahead and open the public hearing at this time. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, we'll close. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to move staff recommendation.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Solari.
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Zork. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, and then our next item is going to be public notice items.
Thank you very much. We have a notice of a public hearing which will be scheduled for January 7th, 2020. This will be to codify the code of Indian River County. This is legislative in nature, required by Florida statutes, and again, it'll be held on January 7th. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. And then the next item is going to be County Administrator's Matters, the 2020 Treasure Coast Tri-County Legislative Priorities.
Morning, Madam Chair.
Gonna
Brian's.
turn it over to Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Brian Sullivan, Legislative Affairs and Communications Manager. Members of the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, St. Lucie County, and Martin County met on October 3rd in Fort Pierce to discuss and have discussion on staff recommendations for the 2020 Treasure Coast Tri-County Legislative Priorities. This is a collaborative effort between the 3 counties to put together a legislative agenda that are all very similar issues and issues which all 3 counties can be in support of, and kind of form somewhat of a Treasure Coast coalition in Tallahassee in support of these measures. Prior to the meeting, each of the 3 counties were offered the opportunity to submit policy proposals. These proposals were researched and analyzed by county staff, who then recommended whether each proposal should be included in the legislative agenda for the 2020 Florida legislative session. After the October 3rd meeting, county staff compiled the adopted recommendations and prepared a document which reflects the finalized 2020 Treasure Coast Tri-County Legislative Priorities, which you all have. And there is one revision to those priorities on the topic of biosolids. It's a technical change to ensure that the language reflects that we are in support of reducing the land application of biosolids, and that is the most important priority for us with respect to biosolids. Some other Some other topics included in the priorities are water quality, ensuring protection and funding of Indian River Lagoon projects, funding of beach renourishment projects, supporting a modification of the state's recycling goal, short-term rentals and customary use, and then also a blanket priority that ensures support of home rule authority in the state.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Brian on this?
No, Madam Chair, I just want to thank Brian for summarizing all of the input. It was a lengthy day and a lot of input, but I did get excited when you said there was an amendment. I thought that the other counties were going to begin supporting the anti-death train movement that we have stood for quite some time. But that's not the case?
I'm working on it, maybe next year.
Okay. Well, thank you.
So Commissioners, we do need a motion to approve or support the legislative priorities.
Motion to approve and accept?
I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner O'Brien. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank
And if I can, Chairman, I just want to thank Brian. Brian's been hitting the ground running really hard for this county, not only putting together items like this, but he's been spending a lot of time in Tallahassee. I know he was in some meetings with me last week in Tallahassee, and I just want to thank Brian for really hitting the ground running here, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's going to be a good. All right, our next item is Public Works, award of bid for construction of intersection improvements at State Road 60 and 43rd Avenue. Welcome, Mr. Spierka.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rich Sperica, Public Works Director. Back in 2017, the board approved a resolution with DOT for the intersection improvements of 43rd and State Road 60 for cost participation and constructions and CEI services. Back in June of 2019, the board approved a CEI contract for CEI services for this project, along with a amendment with DOT to increase the construction cost to $13,100,000 for reimbursement. We opened bids on the project on October 30th. Timothy Rose Contracting was the low bidder at $13,641,589. As part of the bidding process, there is an article in there where the bidder can withdraw the bid within 24 hours if he finds a grievous mistake. Mr. Rose submitted a letter to the purchasing department 48 hours after the bids were opened, therefore his withdrawal was denied. Staff completed a detailed review of the bids received, estimated cost for the project, and found that Timothy Rose Contracting was the lowest responsible bidder. He was $800,000 less than the engineer's cost estimate, and Tim Rose Contracting has completed numerous projects with the county successfully. Funding for the project is available from 50% from DOT, and the remaining of the project is funded through the county's CIE project. Staff recommends the board approve award of the lowest responsible bidder, Timothy Rose Contracting, for $13,641,589. Staff further recommends the board approve the sample agreement and authorize the chairman to execute said agreement after review and approval of both of the agreement, required public construction bond by the county attorney as to form and legal sufficiency, and the receipt and approval of the required insurance by the risk manager.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Commissioner Zork.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Few questions. One, just as a reminder that as we are moving this project forward, some of the local businesses in the area there, one of them is currently not open anymore, the Szechuan Palace, so they wouldn't be part of this. But some of the other businesses that will be open during the length of this construction that we talked about, potentially having some type of a informational meeting where they can see what the timeline is so they can expect what type of disruption their places may have at different points in time during construction. So if there's still some way we can accommodate that for the probably 12 or 14 owners that are kind of in that corner intersection area, I think that would be much appreciated by them. Secondly, we don't know who the bonding agent is currently or proposed for this, or was that part of the bid documents or the submission?
Jennifer, do you have that information? I don't have that off the
Okay.
top of my head, but Jennifer Hyde with the purchasing has that information, I hope.
Good morning, Jennifer Hyde, County Purchasing Manager. We do typically ask them to provide the name of their bonding company with their qualifications, but that doesn't mean that's the one that we require them to use. So
Okay.
we do have a bond, the name of bonding company with their bid.
And then if this is awarded today, how many days do they have to provide kind of the final bond document to
It's
us?
15 days from when we make notice of award, which will happen today.
Okay.
So 15 days from today to return everything.
That, I didn't do the math, that doesn't come out like on Christmas Day or anything,
Probably
Close.
gonna end up being
or
one.
New Year's Eve, one or the other?
Right,
Okay, so you purchasing would keep track of
yes.
compliance of that. And lastly, with the project of this size, would we have a county staff person on site kind of each day of construction because of the magnitude to make sure we're good on our MOTs and safety and limiting disruption if possible?
We've hired Consor. The board approved the $2 million contract with Consor to oversee it. There's going to be numerous staff members
Okay.
from Consor on the project, ensuring that the contractor follows the DOT requirements for
Okay.
MOT and everything that goes on. County will have somebody on the project, not full-time. That's what we hired Consor for. But we will be monitoring the project. We'll be monitoring the daily logs to ensure that it's in compliance with DOT standards.
And I know this would have been before your time, but the Oslo Road widening from 43rd to 58th Avenue, when we got down to the end, we had a lot of rain or weather delay calculations that somebody had to sort out. Did it rain at the project, or did it rain at the airport? That would fall under consorts to kind of document delays, and would they keep us up to date on those, or do you get to the end and they go, by the way, there's 62 rain days that they're doing, that pushes it back, or do we get some incremental updates on the time frame?
Okay, rain days are calculated by the rain on the project, which means there will be a rain gauge on the project at the project trailer.
Okay.
Secondly, rain days are calculated monthly. They're not
Okay.
calculated at the end of the project. We provide rain days in the daily reports, and a monthly letter goes out to the contractor stating for this month, from this day to this day, you got X amount of days for rain delays if it rains at all.
Right.
That it's not at the end of the project. It is monthly to make sure everybody's on the same page, and we don't have to go back and research in a project that takes 18 months to do.
Right, okay, that sounds like that'll work very well. Great, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Commissioner Fleischer, any questions? No? Commissioners? No?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, well, this is an
Move
action
staff
item.
recommendation.
I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien and a second by Commissioner Fleischer. All in favor? Oh, I'm so sorry. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none? Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our next item is Utility Services, the West Wabasso Sewer Phase 2, Change Order Number 1, and Contractor's Final Pay Request.
Madam Chair, go ahead and move staff recommendation, just with the note that the contractor did come in under budget, and they're just asking for their retainage, and we now have this project completed. So move
Fantastic.
staff recommendation.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, a second by Commissioner Solari. Anybody from the public? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to Commissioners' items. Our first item under Commissioners' Matters is Commissioner Zork, and increased efforts to support affordable housing projects. Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After recently speaking at the United Against Poverty Housing Forum and some other great issues that were discussed that day, something that I've had have known of for a long time, but maybe the light bulb didn't go off till that particular day, is, somebody had to turn the switch. You know, when you look at a project, one of the most cost hurdles that you have to get over first is the cost of land for a project. And we, in the county, inadvertently housing, or could be for another type of affordable housing. As what's come up at our Affordable Housing Committee meetings that Commissioner Solari is the liaison on, there's a number of needs, probably from 1 to 10, that one type of product doesn't suit or fit all the particular needs. You have those that we're trying to lift up from initial homelessness, then you have singles, you have married couples, you have elderly couples, you have single-parent families, 1, 2, 3, 4 kids. There's not one silver bullet that would fix this, the affordable housing kind of deficit that we're working on here in the county. So I kind of went through and was looking at a number of the parcels that we as the county own, and some of those may be, if they were at some point deemed, we'd have to shift it from inventory to a surplus piece to where some type of private-public partnership or nonprofit partnership could be formed going forward. But obviously the first thing would be, is there, like to hear the other members of the commission, is there consensus to let's inventory what we have with some basic criteria? Obviously, if we own something out in the Stick Marsh area or something out on 60 at 20 Mile Bend, those are not what I would consider sites that we would want to, we could inventory them, but they would not be a site that would be conducive for affordable housing. We'd want to know some things of, obviously, site size, our utilities in the nearby area, what's the current land use and zoning for that particular property, and then from there decide would we want to commit a percentage of some of the county property that we own to make it available for these type of partnerships that are out in the market today. Also, I think the cities as well, the city of Vero Beach, I looked on some of the properties that they own. They also have some sites, and I would put in probably one other criteria. If we have no plans, or the other entities have no plans for a 20 to 25-year horizon, we know we have needs for future water plants, sewer plants, fire stations, those things. So we know we have things that may be in need for those down the road, so those would take those sites off the list. But I still think once we go through, there would be a number of sites that could be very, very helpful in trying to put that contribution into the mix, and then partnering with some of the great nonprofit groups that we have in the community to then take it to the next step forward. So with that, I'd like to, Madam Chair, see if there's any other thoughts or comments from the fellow commissioners.
Sure. Commissioners?
It seems like we just kind of did this not that long ago. I think every several years, staff goes through and comes up with a list of surplus lots, and then we just gave we donated a couple, 3 to every dream has a price. I'm not sure what other parcels we might own.
Well, we own, those were lot parcels that we put on that list traditionally. To the south of us, the old school board hospital site, directly to our south. That's never been on any list, even though I don't think we have, with the upstairs of Building B being vacant, I don't think we have a stated use for that property in the next 20 to 25 years.
Right, and that's within the city of Vero Beach limits, and I can't imagine the city council rezoning that for affordable housing with what the neighbors will bring up there, but I mean,
Well, I mean,
if that's the horse you want to ride against that windmill, have at it.
I did the community meeting on the bus hub for the neighborhood, and they, at that time, not to say they would not change, but at that time they said it should be housing. Not to say we propose housing, and they said no, it should have been the bus hub. Not going to downplay the dynamics of the community. But, you know, if
Jason, do we have other larger tracks that this might apply to, or,
So the county has numerous properties. What we do, if you look at the statute, it basically says that we're supposed to go through the inventory and find any property suitable for affordable housing. So what we do is we go through a process where we put together the inventory, we have it go out to the departments and see if there's a need for a future water plant or something like that. So there are other parcels that we do have, many of those we have a plan for, so then they don't make the list. If the board wants to do a deeper dive on some of those other properties, we can get that info to you. Speaking to the old school board county building property across the street, when we moved over here, the plan was to keep that available for future needs for county facilities. So that's why that hasn't made the list. If the board wants to take a deeper dive into that, we can provide you an inventory of all of our properties, but many of them have, you know, a site that's going to be a future fire station or a future, you know, they may have reservations for park land or something like that. So those never make the list.
okay. I don't have any opposition to taking a look. I'm just not sure what it'll bring up, but I don't have opposition to looking.
Commissioner Solari.
It seems that we do have a process in place to look at properties on a regular basis, and we just went through that process over a year ago. To try to scrounge up a lot more of things and try to then reclassify things, I don't think is a good use of staff time. You know, just on the piece that you mentioned, I mean, it was my understanding that the old hospital property, which used to be the county administration building, was kept for future flexibility for the county and the expanse of the county. We hear all the times from people like the tax collector, Carol Jean Jordan, that we're running out of parking space and things like that. So that flexibility is important. And just because the people in that area wanted housing doesn't mean they'd want affordable housing, even though that might be appropriate. But again, mixing up with the city of Vero Beach and trying to tell the municipalities what to do, I think, is not a good path forward. I also particularly don't like the idea that we are looking at properties and specifying one group or area, which basically then, especially if we put a cap on it, makes it in the form of an entitlement. In the last months, I've talked to a number of people who say they're going to come back for us to try to do things which will end up in more entitlements. I think taking that type of flexibility away from future commissions is a huge mistake. You weren't here during the first years of the Great Recession, but one of the great things about that was that we still had flexibility to do the right things with particularly our budget. And 2 years before that, we would have had no idea or suspicion that we would have been making those choices. But only because we had the flexibility were we able to make those type of choices. So I am more and more reluctant to support anything which is going to add more entitlements to county resources and take away flexibility of future commissions. Because I know that the state is trying to do that to us at a regular basis, and I think that is a mistake on the state's parts, but I also think it's a mistake on the part of present-day commissioners to do things which take away that type of flexibility from future commissions. We don't know what the issues are going to be 5 years from now. And to think that we can prognosticate well enough to do the right thing today to address issues 5 or 10 years down the road, I think is an example of hubris which I wouldn't want to be accused of promoting. So, thank you.
One thing to follow up on the entitlement part, if we made a portion of land that we have available, this is not envisioning an obligation that we would then be subsidizing that operation. This would be, it's made available, it goes to the nonprofit management entity. It's theirs to keep afloat, run, manage, rent, whatever they're going to do. There's no obligation that would be passed over to the county side. The county would be to help foster more available affordable housing units, would be the provider of the land where the project could be built.
The land is a resource. If you guarantee that resource to somebody else, it's a pecuniary benefit to somebody, which is a subsidy. any pecuniary benefit by the government to a private sector is a subsidy. I know the death train doesn't recognize that, but I would hate to have the same type of logic of the death train enter these premises.
Commissioner Fleischer?
And again, it's been said, we have a program. We've just completed the program within the past 12 months. Properties have been released to nonprofit organization. They are compelled to go forward, and they have a great success rate already. And, you know, I just want to go back to 2006. I think you intimated during the recessionary period. Had we done that then, I don't know if we would have been able to complete, and we are still working on some roadway projects that have been very costly for the county, the taxpayers, to have to repurchase land that was part of different approaches in the past, like Murphy deed restrictions, and there was a lot of negotiating for, and it's still happening, for 66th Avenue and Oslo as well. And there is some parcels of property that really were not committed to usage or earmarked after going through all of the departments as to what the county had anticipated to do, and we are obligated to report that to Tallahassee on it, was it a 3-year period, correct? And in doing so, I would imagine that any excise property or property that we have not earmarked for any other purposes has been moved forward and reported, and that property will be up for availability to those that are involved with the affordable housing efforts, and the 501c3s available will most certainly step up to the plate if there's property available. But I don't understand why we would want to change that approach.
Well, these sites, some of the sites that I've mentioned have never been on that site of consideration. Maybe we need to look at the criteria of what puts something on the list. If we have no forecasted use for 20 to 25 years, maybe it could be put forward to a better another community benefit, whether it's affordable housing or park or some other public benefit use. But just to keep, you know, when the city had the golf course on 43rd Avenue, they had no plan, did nothing for it for 10 to 12 years, nothing. It just sat there and they mowed it. So now it's in hands where we'll use that piece to enhance the Dodgertown. So that makes, now it's going to be put into active use along with the recreational assets that'll be put there. You know, the process that we've gone through of doing the lot inventory, I think maybe Jason, you could tell me, in the last 2 years, how many total lots have we transferred over? I'm thinking it's less than 8, but I could be off.
It's generally a handful, and I think that maybe partially because we do this every 3 years. Since the statute is there, basically what's going to be on the list is generally something that we didn't own 3 years ago, or either wasn't a need for. So what happens is we have a handful. I think maybe three were provided to nonprofits in the last round, and then we had maybe 4 or 5 left that we put up for auction. I think only one of those sold, but I think there were questions on a couple of the other parcels. So we don't have a huge number, but I think that's partially due to the nature that we do go through that process every 3 years. If we didn't have it, you might accumulate some large amount of properties that you could do, and I think that was probably some of the rationale behind the legislation, although I'm maybe giving them too much credit for having good rationale, but I think that was part of the rationale that we're required to, and the cities are required to in statute as well, go through a similar process to make sure that we're taking that look. So I think the list doesn't get too long because of that every 3-year review.
And again, so we've done 3 or 4, a handful in the last couple of years, where you could have 50 to 60 units on the property to the south of us. So to me, it's a way to help jumpstart, get some things moving sooner. I think what we undertook with the Gifford Garden You know, maybe in 2 or 3 years, we'll know if we work out the foreclosing on the lien that's up there, or maybe it'll be less than that, or maybe something else will derive from that. But it's a different situation, but it has no clear path forward. We don't know what will happen if we'll ever get it. It'll be great if we do. That again will provide another portion of affordable housing space that can go. And so I think, you know, just to kind of put things out there, can we do a vote on this to see if there's any consensus to go forward, or is there any other comments that are out there? And I think there may be some folks in the audience today.
Yeah, so just for my 2 cents on this, I think that if you want to have the Affordable Housing Committee look at what would be appropriate parameters for properties to do these types of affordable housing projects on, that might be a good start. And if you wanted to identify specific properties that you may want to bring back for us to discuss, I would have no problem with that. I do not think that we need to have a percentage cap. I think I would prefer it to be handled on a property by property, because I think when you get into a percentage cap, you set up different things that could become problematic in the future. I don't agree that 25 years, if we don't have anything going on or plans, is a good threshold, because property is only getting more expensive. I mean, and they're not making any more of it. What we have is what we have. So if we need it for the future, it would hamstring us just to identify something today that we might not need today, but we're going to need in 30 or 35 years. So I would caution some of this property, because of its proximity to other projects and roads and those types of things, is going to be very necessary as the community grows. That being said, I think that the committee and other groups in the community are doing wonderful things for affordable housing, and whatever we can do to help support that and expedite that is our job. And I do agree with that statement. But the last thing I'll say, just to kind of wrap up what you asked about the cities, is that also might be a great conversation for the Affordable Housing Committee to ask the cities what their process is. Is it similar to ours? How often they go through that, and maybe what projects or properties they've been able to open up for affordable housing, just to kind of get a feel of what they're doing, what their timeframes are, and if there's other ways that we could collaborate with them and with the nonprofits and those types of things, to get a better view of what's going on in the community. So, but beyond that, I think we have a list of, I think we also went through a process of doing surplus park space not too long ago. Am I, like a year or so ago? So there should be multiple lists that GIS could give you based on what is county-owned property. And then if there's certain things that you might want to identify specifically to bring back, I mean, I would have no problem with you putting that under your matters. This property I want to talk about, blah, blah, blah. But just to go through an overall exercise when it seems like it's repeating multiple exercises that we have had. But I would suggest you talk to the Affordable Housing Committee about what would make a property appropriate for affordable housing. So there's some parameters, so then when you look at that list, you're kind of, it pares it down to something more reasonable. But I think there's people in the audience that want to speak on this as well.
And just, if I may, Madam Chair, just kind of looking at this at a 20,000-foot level. While we may not know what might be an issue 5 years from now, I think we can all agree that for a firefighter, a teacher, a sheriff deputy, a retail clerk, hundreds of positions like that, finding a home that they can buy is an issue right now. I think we can say that affordable housing is a current issue. The second big point, I believe, is I don't think the free market is going to fix it. That there's no builder out there right now that's going to develop a subdivision and voluntarily build 1,500 square foot homes with Formica countertops and no crown molding that might be affordable. We tried this with Falcon Trace and Millstone Landing. We changed the lot sizes to a small lot, thinking the homes would be smaller, and more affordable. And what the builders did is they just went 2 floors, still came up with a 3,000 square foot home that sold for $400,000. So I don't think the free market is just gonna voluntarily, and all the builders out there start saying, yeah, you know what, this is a problem. Let's forget about our profits and we're gonna build 1,500 square foot homes. I don't believe that's gonna happen. So I don't think we can address this issue without some level of government intervention. That we have to take some level of action, and whether it be providing land or the ship funding is a good start, but again, I just don't think the free market's going to do it on their own. So I think we have to get involved at some level. And Commissioner Zork, what I would just, it doesn't sound like you have 3 to go forward here, but maybe you could just contact somebody in the property appraiser's office and ask them to give you a list, and they might do it for you. And then you could pick from there and bring that back to us on as Madam Chair mentioned, on a case-by-case basis. And I would think maybe some of the maybe somebody that used to sit right there might be able to help you with that in the property appraiser's office, so you could try that aspect. But anyway, that's just my thoughts from the higher level here.
Commissioner Sorry?
And I would agree that we can't expect the free market to do everything, and it won't in this place, which is why we activated the Affordable Housing Committee. That committee has met a number of times. That committee is doing a lot of good work. There are, from what the work has been done so far, going to be 10, 20, 30 different ways that the government can impact and help the affordable housing project. But this is the second time that Commissioner Zork has brought something before us here that would be appropriately done at the Affordable Housing Committee, and I don't understand that. I mean, we've got a board, which is, especially people like Bill Shute and others, have worked very hard to get going and provide significant information for. That board is the most active in doing the best work that it has been doing in the 11 years I've been here. So why we will not want to jump over that resource and skip it for the benefit of one small group on one type of activity, I just don't understand. To me, that is just going to undermine their work and demoralize them. So if we want them to do something for affordable housing, just give them the directives that they should have. Allow them to do the type of work and not cherry pick things to have us look at when most of us haven't been doing much background work on affordable housing, but for us to make decisions from the dais with no backup on something really important, I don't think is the right way to go ahead. I think if we're going to be serious about the Affordable Housing Committee, we ought to let them do that work. If we have suggestions for it, then, put yourself on the agenda and allow that committee to do its work. And again, with so many different parameters in so many different directions, the difficult part of that committee is going to figure out, what are the best set to get the best result. And so anyway, that.
I can't argue. Yes, Mr. Paladin.
Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, commissioners. I'm Joseph Paladin. I'm the president of Black Swan Consulting. And I've been a part of affordable housing for well over 20-some years all around the state of Florida. And I've done a lot to work with affordable housing in this county since I've been here 20 years ago. And as the chairman of the Growth Awareness Committee, I wouldn't want to give the impression out there that the county hasn't taken any positive steps in addressing affordable housing, because we have. And you got to keep in mind, for every action, there's a reaction, people. And for instance, we passed a small lot subdivision. We changed that LDR to using a small lot subdivision for affordable housing. That's a step. We did inclusionary housing, which I believe in very much. That raises the scale of living throughout the whole county, to the people buying affordable housing and the people living in those communities. And you're not digressing by regressing on any values of property, which is important. Every dream has a price, something I just discussed out in the lobby this morning. We've done a lot in this county. The commissioners have done a whole bunch in this county to try and address affordable housing without causing harm to other developments and other inclusionary housing throughout the area. Inclusionary housing is great. Back when we did Travasso, I did that like 13 years ago. They were one of the rezoning. We addressed it at that time with a developer's agreement with a deed restriction. We said, okay, we'll give you this much zoning,
but for every 6 houses you build, you have to build 2 houses that's affordable to this price range. The developer agreed, the builder agreed. So in that particular aspect of affordable housing, it is getting paid for by the builder and the developer, because he actually built 2 houses out of every 6 houses, out of every 7 houses actually, that cost him more money to build than what he sold them for. So Commissioner O'Brien's right, Commissioner Solari's right, I agree with everybody up there. But we can't expect the builder to just voluntarily give up everything. But if we use a little nudge, and when he's trying to get his approval, when he's trying to get his rezoning, that's the way we got these things done through the Growth Awareness Committee. And he voluntarily agreed to do that, and that's a deed restriction today. As we're here today, it's still a deed restriction. So there's ways that we can do this through developers agreement, and we can get development to help pay for this, help pay for itself through rezonings and through approvals. But things have been done over the last 10, 12, 13 years, so I wouldn't want anybody to have the impression out there that the county commission hasn't worked aggressively in addressing affordable housing, because we have. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak on this item? Welcome.
Morning, Commissioners. I'm Anthony Zorbaugh. I'm the Executive Director of The Source here in Indian River County. And we have, 2 months ago, we've launched a project called Dignity Village. So we're looking at creating affordable housing in our community. We met with the Planning Department. We met with Commissioner Adams. We met with Commissioner Zork. We met with many individuals in our community to identify parcels of land in our community, and we came up with two that would be appropriate zoning-wise for us to go into and build a tiny house community. The first parcel is close to Wabasso. It's a 24-acre parcel. It's listed for about $5 million. The second parcel is down on Oslo. It's listed for, it was listed for $3.75 million. We met with the owner of the property. They dropped it down to $1.75 million. 30 days ago, they dropped it down to $1.5 million. As we met with different individuals, they told us to look at scrub jays. Is the property even buildable? I know absolutely nothing about scrub jays. I know absolutely nothing about wildlife. All I know is about human services. And as you can see, there's many individuals from The Source that are here at this meeting that are looking for affordable housing. Our plan is not to look for state, federal government money. Our plan is just to work with county officials to identify a place where we can go. We're looking at private individuals to fund this project. We have a builder who's on board to build this project at the dollars that we raise. So when we look at the private sector, we do have a builder who's coming on board for this project to help us in this community. It's just that we need to be able to identify where can we go. We've looked at city property. We looked at city property to do an overnight center so individuals can have a safe place to stay every single night. The city has denied us an opportunity to go into a location that's suitable in the city. So what we're here just asking for is just an opportunity to take a look at where can we go. If you tell us where we can go, we will look at building it where we can go. The problem in this community is not the money. Every nonprofit in here and every organization in this community has a good opportunity to raise additional money to fund their projects. It's the other issues of where can you build it, where can you look at the zoning and the red tape for us to be able to go. And I think that's what Commissioner Zork is just looking at, is where can we look at potentially placing a facility to put 110 small homes for individuals to live on.
Commissioner Solari?
If that's what you want,
Yes, sir.
I don't believe Commissioner Zork's item hits it at all. It would be absolutely no help at all. I think that the best path for you would actually be to, because I saw the brochure on the Dignity Village, it looks great. Yeah. And again, there wasn't enough detail there, nor do I have the expertise to say that there may be some issues with it, but I would suspect that it may be in conflict with some present regulations. Have you by any chance had that conversation with our community development?
We have.
And is it consistent with the present
It is.
regulations?
Yes, sir.
So if it is, then why do you have a problem finding the piece of land?
It's, the two parcels that we're looking at have to be big enough. There's only a couple parcels that are 25 acres and above that has city utilities on them to be able to do it. The one out in Wabasso is zone commercial, heavy commercial. So to go through the zoning process to get it rezoned back to residential would be a process. The same process that we had to go through for the overnight shelter in Indian River in the city. When you open it up to community support and community town hall meetings, as you know, this is not an easy sell. You know, and you have NIMBYism where not in my backyard. A lot of individuals don't want that in their community. So that's where we're saying, where can we put it that is, number one, easy for individuals to get to, and number two, where you wouldn't be able to fight NIMBYism, where people come out and say, not in my backyard.
I would still think, and Mr. Shute is luckily right in the back there.
Sure.
That one of the places to start would be at the Affordable Housing Committee.
Sure.
To have them take a look at it, and then to see if there's a problem finding the right type of lands, what is the nature of those problems, and how can they be addressed?
Sure.
And so then it might not even be a developer-initiated process to rezone or whatever, but it could be something that the county picks up. Because, and I believe Mr. Shute is already working on what the inventory of parcels in the county where you could put affordable housing on it. And but if he's not, which I believe he is, we can, at the Affordable Housing Committee, direct him to do so. But at the end of the day, if one of the most substantial problems is the lack of land, then that's something, a specific thing that ought to be addressed.
Correct.
And that's exactly the type of governmental parameters that restrict things that we want to loosen where
Right.
possible.
Right.
But the best things to do is to have specific examples, and yours is a specific example. That was conceptually what we did with the Gifford Gardens, is to say, we have a specific example, which now we can work through at the Affordable Housing Committee, which should help us do our job better.
Correct.
And so to have your project and to have the Affordable Housing Committee to do whatever it can to increase the probability of your success would be something good for the committee to do and work on.
I just know that, you know, for us, the amount of individuals that we see in our community that comes through our doors is astronomical. If you look at the United Way's Alice report, there's 51% of everybody in this community is one emergency away from being on the street. So the source just doesn't deal with homeless individuals. We deal with individuals that are stretching every dollar to be able to stay in their homes. So what we're saying is that when we look at sitting on committees and we look at looking at land and how long that takes, that process, we have individuals that are here tonight that need a place to stay, and we have to address that today. We have individuals who need a safe, secure place to stay. In our community, there is none. We have great programs, don't get me wrong. There's great, amazing programs, but they are just that, they are programs. But if an individual cannot get into those programs, where do they stay at tonight? And that's what we have to look at.
Commissioner Solari, when is the next Affordable Housing Committee meeting?
I'll let Bill answer that one.
Sure.
Of course, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I think it's January 22nd. It's Wednesdays. It's
Sometime in
later in the month.
Okay, so my suggestion would be to have, perhaps ask Mr. Zorbo to bring this concept to the Affordable Housing Committee, as you suggested, to kind of vet and talk about the issues in a group that will be more capable of addressing the concerns than we are here today.
That'd be great. And matter of fact, Bill and I have a meeting on December 30th to talk about affordable housing and some of the next steps. So if Mr. Zorbo wanted to join us for a part of that meeting, think that'd be okay, Bill? Sure. And what time is that? It's 10 o'clock? I believe so. And if that time's not convenient for you, I think that we can arrange the schedule to make it work. But I mean, that type of practical thing is, I think, very, very positive.
Commissioner O'Brien?
Yeah, thank you. Going back to the scrub jay thing, you don't want to get involved with that at all because you're getting the feds involved and it's a nightmare. But if you want to give me your contact information and the address of the parcel on Oslo, I have a friend that does a lot of Scrub J survey work, and I can have him take a look, and then I can give you a, yeah, it's possible, or just forget it, because, so if you give, after the meeting, if you give me that information, I'll have him follow up with you.
We looked at, there's a reason why it was 3.75 million and then dropped down to 1.5 million.
Yeah,
Microphone.
yeah, well, there's 2 million of mitigation you're gonna have to
Yeah,
pay for.
absolutely. We know that there's a reason that they dropped it from 3.7 to 1.5 is it something that they can't do anything with? So instead of us using, donor dollars to purchase a property that we cannot use, we need to be able to have all of our ducks in a row on where we go.
If you give me your info and the address, I'll have him take a look at it.
Sure, sure.
Sounds like we have a good
He just
path
mentioned
forward. Yes.
the scrub jays, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Just mentioned scrub jays, we didn't even look at gopher tortoises as well.
You gotta include, can you do turtles too, Peter?
We have to include them all, and, but with that, you just need a footprint, because you have a great project and a process to remove people from their vehicles, the woods, or homes that they can no longer afford. So,
Yes.
I like the
Hi,
project.
everybody. I'm a
Please.
volunteer,
Please just state your name and address for the record.
Susan Johnson in Vero Beach, and I'm a volunteer and have been for quite some time. And I think it's really important that everybody understand what we do. It's not handouts. What I do, and June over here, we take in all of the donations and we sort them out and decide what is good for the client. And we also handle the laundry facilities. Now, they don't get to do laundry without doing a chore. We also have a new program starting in January where they're going to have to earn source dollars to get clothing. We are not about handouts. We're about training people to live differently so they can have a better quality of life. So it's really important because I've heard people say, oh, well, you just give stuff away. No, we don't. And Tony, who's done an incredible job as the new executive director, and I've seen that in the last 3 years. I've worked for other charities where I've seen executive directors do their jobs because they want to be in the luminary section and they want to tell folks at church what they do. That is not Tony Zorba. So whatever you can do to help us, please, it's very, very important. These people living on the streets made bad decisions, yes, but they deserve a second chance. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Oh, certainly. Please just state your name and address for the record.
I'm a veteran. United States Navy. I spent 14 years making sure that everyone in this county is safe, has a home. I got 3 wounds for that. Madam Chairman, we are only asking for one thing, a home. Excuse me, ma'am. I have no home. And we got one up in heaven, and that's a long time away from now, I hope. Mr. Fletcher, I've known you a long time. You also, Mr. Zor. This county needs to please help us. I go to the source every single day, if I can. I also do my own work as a landscaper. Madam Chairman and Commissioners, I ask in the name of the God of my fathers that you help us. I see so many coming through the source that are homeless, whether they're women, whether they're men, black, white, or whatever. They put their lives on the line just like I have. We need a place to stay. It's cold. It rains. It's hot. All we're asking is a chance to have a place. I have nowhere else to go. And if it wasn't for a pastor right now, I wouldn't have a place to go. I've been homeless twice. It's not a beautiful thing. I've been hungry. I know what it's like to eat nothing. Not because I was a sailor, not because I was a soldier, because there was nothing there for me. And in front of you all, I have no family. None. My parents are gone. I come from a country of Cuba and Russia. My mother was Cuban, my father was Russian. And there's one thing that we always know. If you don't know about the Russian people, we are fighters. We have been trying to be conquered for years, and we're not going to let it. And I'm not going to let myself go down in defeat because no one wants to help us. Please, this man loves us. These people volunteer their lives and their time. I have done mine. Please give us the chance to have a home. May God bless you all. Because we need a place to go. There is none. There is none nowhere. I've lived in Missouri in the cold. I've lived in Afghanistan where it's cold. Please, give us a chance. My God, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. God bless you, sir.
Hello there. My name is John Szewski, and I'm a volunteer at The Source. I used to have a plumbing company in Philadelphia, came here to retire, and I started doing some preaching at the Vero jail and at the prison in Orlando. I got to see the more uncomfortable side of this life, even though I've lived a very honest and very privileged life myself with my 5 siblings in Philadelphia. But when I started preaching in the jail, I was asked to come to The Source, and started preaching there one Sunday every month. And I had a wonderful experience last Sunday that I preached there, and I shared a Christmas story. Of course, we all know that we're in that season, the season of caring, loving, and giving. But the amazing thing about the story of Christmas is these people had no home. And they found a place in a barn. And that's where Mary and Joseph went, and that's where the baby Jesus was born. Well, after I preached the message, I met a couple there at The Source who were homeless, and they wanted me to pray for them. And I said, you know, what is your needs? What do you want me to pray with you for? His name is Joey, her name was Carlotta. And they said, we don't have a place to stay. We have no home. We come here at The Source to eat and to shower. And I also have met men that are in the Vero jail that are going to be released. They have no place to live. They have no place to stay. I watch the news like we all do, and we see the homeless problem around the country. We see the tents that are up in beautiful cities like San Francisco and Chicago, Seattle. This isn't just a local problem, it's a national problem that we all have. Sooner or later, it's going to grip more and more places. This organization is being funded. This organization is tried and proved in the community of being a hope for the hopeless. I just wanted to share with you how I felt talking to Joey and Carlotta when they asked if there's anything I could do to get them someplace, anything. And I said I would pray. So when I heard about this meeting, I was so encouraged to at least present the truth that we don't see, because we live our lives and, you know, it's easier not to look that way. Well, these people look that way. And we want to do something that's positive for the community, and we would appreciate anything that you can do to steer us in the right direction to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for everybody's comments. I think that we have a clear path forward, connecting those people that need resources with the resources within the community to try to get this project, at least the information that you need to make the decisions to move forward on that. So we appreciate everybody coming today and for the discussion. Commissioner Zork, does that give some type of clarification
It does.
to your
In the
question?
made a note for the next Affordable Housing Committee meeting. We'll bring
Okay.
something to them. Those meetings are jointly noticed, so more than one
Mhm.
commissioner can be
Correct.
present at the same time. And we'll see where the discussion goes from there.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to Commissioner Solari's matters, the Florida Department of Transportation and Liquefied Natural Gas. Do you have a video for this?
I do not, but with the bureaucracy involved, I don't think we want the video. And the first, right off the bat, I have to correct the subject matter. When I first heard about this on Tuesday night, I had to get my matters in by Wednesday morning, and I got some of the information wrong. It's not with FDOT. This is with the U.S. Department of Transportation, and it's actually a subgroup. I cannot pronounce the acronym. It's PHMSA, Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. But what seems to be happening is, right now, you have to go through a specific process in order to transport LNG on rail. It requires a special permit from the PHMSA or the FRA. And there's a rule going forward which would evidently change this, which would allow, I guess, the granting of the ability to ship LNG without going through the existing process. So right now, it seems like FEC is trying to go through this process. It seems like killing Floridians, one person at a time, is not sufficient for the death train, that they apparently are seeking a more efficient means to kill people and destroy communities, and that would be the transport of LNG via rail. Now, the FRA discussed this with FEC in the past. There's a March 3rd, 2016 letter to the Florida East Coast Railway from the FRA, and I'll just read a couple paragraphs from it. And this was when FEC was trying to go through the old process of getting a LING permit through the process. The proposed transportation of LING by rail is a new opportunity for railroads and a new challenge for safety regulators. No railroad in the United States currently transports LNG. LNG is a hazardous material with temperatures of negative 260 degrees Fahrenheit at atmospheric pressure. We know any release of LNG is in a non-controlled environment is dangerous, but the transportation of large quantities of LNG in a single train presents unique safety risks. That paragraph by itself would suggest that you wouldn't want LNG to be running along the FEC tracks with a high-speed rail passing it multiple times on the trip. But it goes on to say that moving hazardous materials by rail is not new and is one of the safest ways to move dangerous products. That's an interesting phrase when in the same paragraph it goes on to say, but the unique challenges posed by rail transportation of the product by an alternative method poses problems. Any LNG transported along the proposed routes would eventually share the routes with high-performance passenger trains operating at speeds up to 110 miles an hour. The complexity of this operating environment requires FRA to conduct a thorough evaluation of FEC's proposal to ensure public safety. And it lists a number of things that the analysis would have to go through. Since this date, the FRA has allowed the transportation of LNG gas at one location, at the Alaska Railroad demonstration project. And in its letter, it notes, for example, if the ARR, Alaska Railroad demonstration project, if the AAR transports LNG, it will be doing so at 40 miles per hour through mostly unpopulated areas with few highway rail grade crossings, whereas the FEC's proposal trains transporting LNG will pass through highly populated areas with more frequent crossings while sharing tracks with passenger trains traveling at 110 miles an hour. So again, based on the FRA letter, you'd think it'd be almost impossible. But this rule that's being proposed would evidently bypass this project. And there's a comment period, either supporting or commenting on the rule, that ends December 23rd. And I just want to ask the board if it wanted to have our staff send some comments suggesting that this would be a bad thing. And I'll just finish this little bit up, noting that when we talk about the death train, I mean, this isn't hyperbole, and this isn't something that we make up to be funny. And this is from an article by Terry Spencer of the Associated Press. Since the first Bright Line death in July 2017, 40 more people have been killed, a rate of more than 1 a month, and about 1 for every 20,000 miles the trains have traveled. That's the worst per mile death rate of the nation's 821 railroads. So this railroad ranks 821 for safety or lack of safety in America, and now they want to run LNG trains along the same tracks with it. I find just the idea of that to be one of the worst ideas I've come across in my time as a commissioner. And again, I'd suggest that we write some comments to the acronym, which I cannot pronounce.
Okay. Commissioner O'Brien, you had a comment?
Yeah, just for clarification, Commissioner Solari, so we have the death train, which is the Virgin Bright Line thing. But the death train won't be carrying the LNG, it'll be a different train?
There will be a different train, FEC.
So so instead of the death train, do we need to call that one the bomb train?
I don't think we should encourage this. I don't think we should encourage Commissioner Solari to name things.
We've got the death train, and then we have the bomb train. So I think we need to clarify which destruction we're talking about here.
Well, yeah, you could, but I think that it's basically the whole, the fortress apocalypse that we may be discussing.
Apocalypse train would cover it all.
Commissioner Solari, who is actually 822 if they're 821?
No, there's only 821 railroad trains.
Oh, okay, so there's nobody below that's worse?
No, there's nobody
Okay.
worse. This is the worst performing
wanted
stretch
to
of rail
clarify
in America.
Okay.
And they want to add more risk to it.
So,
That was a motion, I'll second it.
Sure, that is a,
comments?
Is epistle, no, they're not diatribes, they're epistles.
well, no, this one really wasn't a formal epistle because it wasn't typed in the,
Right, in a protective sleeve.
Was it a diatribe or epistle?
no, this was just an emotional outburst.
Okay. Whatever, I second his emotional outburst.
Well-founded emotional.
To have staff write comments against the proposed.
Okay.
Whatever.
Jason and Dylan, is that clear or clear?
Yes, we'll work on something. We've got the letter from FRA, which makes some of the points I think that Commissioner Solari was speaking from, that would be an agency stating their concerns in 2016, that I think it would make sense to restate that we share those concerns and that should be considered in the rulemaking process. I believe that the comments are due by December 23rd, so we will get some draft comments out.
Okay. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this? Seeing none, we have a motion by Commissioner Solari with a second by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is Emergency Services District, approval of public emergency medical transportation letter of agreement between Indian River County and Agency for Healthcare Administration. Welcome, Chief.
It took about 7 drafts to figure out how to put this agenda item together, because ACA is asking for a deposit of funding so that they can actually bundle the deposits from all the providers throughout the county to use as a match for a federal grant. And in turn for that, we'll get, hopefully get the return of that money that we actually send to ACA, plus the PEMT funding that we get on an annual basis to help support the Medicaid transports. It's with a bit of hesitation that I recommend approval of this. We only do it for 1 year. So if we have a problem in this year, we will not do it again next year. So my recommendation is approval.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments for Chief?
No, Madam Chair, I understand that Chief has concerns, and with the fact that that caveat that it is for 1 year and 1 year only at this point, I'll move approval.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher,
I'll second it.
a second by
Yeah, th-
Commissioner
This is
O'Brien.
this is a huge, trust me,
Yes.
from a state agency that, if I remember back in the Medicaid days, they just, their errors that they made were just huge. So yeah, this, quite frankly, this is scary. But I understand what the chief is saying, but yeah, this is a huge blind trust us kind of thing, and it's pretty scary. And I would just ask that we should at least contact Representative Grawl and Senator Mayfield and alert them to this issue, just so they're aware of it, and they can maybe help keep an eye on this as the session goes or whatnot, and, yeah, and,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Fantastic.
Thank you, Chief.
Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this? Seeing none, we have a motion by Commissioner Flesher with a second by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And if there's nothing else for the good of the order,
A big
I
hurry,
will say Merry Christmas
to
and
all.
Happy
Merry
Holidays
Christmas.
to everybody, and we will see you next year. We stand adjourned.
Be safe.